Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Always exciting.
You know it. This time we're going all the way back to Genesis.
Ooh, Genesis.
Yes, it's chapter 11.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about the Tower of Babel.
All right.
Some really big concepts here. Human ambition,
Yeah.
communication, the power of language, how people ended up scattered all across the earth.
Wow.
So this one's going to be full of twists and turns, so buckle up.
Sounds good. It's interesting because, we pick up right after the flood here.
Right.
Humanity's kind of starting over. And what's so striking is everybody speaks the same language.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So just imagine for a second what that would be like.
Yeah.
The ability to collaborate, to understand each other.
It's total unity.
It's really a powerful picture of unity.
At least for a little while.
Right, exactly.
It really does feel like that reset button was pressed.
Yeah.
After the flood, beginning new start.
Uh-huh.
But then everybody decides, hey, let's migrate east. They settle in this place called Shinar.
Shinar.
What's the deal with Shinar? It's not just some random place, is it?
No, not at all. Shinar is actually located in ancient Mesopotamia,
Okay.
which was this incredible hub of innovation and advancement.
So these people weren't exactly roughing it.
No, they were not. They had access to sophisticated irrigation.
Wow.
They were building these incredible ziggurats,
What are ziggurats?
these massive structures reaching towards the sky. They even had early forms of writing.
Really?
I mean, it was kind of like the Silicon Valley of the ancient world.
That's wild. So they're settling in this place that's known for pushing boundaries.
Exactly.
And then they make this even more interesting decision.
What's that?
They decide to build a city with a tower that reaches all the way to the heavens.
To the heavens.
Were they being literal, do you think?
That's a great question. And it's one that scholars have been debating for centuries.
For centuries.
Yeah. Some think they were literally trying to reach heaven.
Okay.
Others believe the tower was more of a symbol.
Oh. A metaphor for humanity's ambition.
I see.
This desire to reach beyond our limits.
That makes sense.
To grasp for ultimate power and knowledge.
It's like we're going to reach up to God ourselves.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about the motivations behind the things that we do.
It does.
The text tells us that they wanted to make a name for themselves.
Right.
And also to avoid being scattered.
Right.
It's interesting, isn't it? We all kind of want to leave our mark on the world, make a difference.
We want to be remembered.
But how far are we willing to go to achieve that?
That's the question, isn't it? It's a double-edged sword. That drive to make a difference.
Sure.
It can lead to amazing things, but it's like the story is giving us a little warning sign.
Yeah, like proceed with caution.
Exactly. Have you ever found yourself so focused on a goal that you kind of lose sight of the bigger picture?
Yeah, all the time. It's so easy to get tunnel vision.
Right.
And that's where things take a turn in the story, right?
Yeah.
God sees what's happening.
And he decides, all right, I need to step in here.
And it says that God came down to observe the city and the tower. But it's important to remember, this is what we call anthropomorphic language.
Anthropomorphic.
It basically means it's a way of describing God in human terms.
Okay.
So it's not that he's literally physically walking around.
Right.
It's emphasizing that he's actively involved.
He's paying attention.
He's paying attention to human affairs.
Yeah.
And he sees their potential. And he says nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them.
Ooh, that's a loaded statement.
It is, right? It's almost like a warning. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different interpretations of this passage.
Sure.
But it definitely raises some red flags about the potential consequences.
Yeah, like where's this going to lead?
Right, and there's this ongoing debate about, is this a story about technology?
Oh.
Like, are they getting too advanced too quickly?
Interesting.
Or is it more about pride and arrogance?
Okay.
Are they challenging God's authority?
We can do this on our own.
Exactly.
It's probably a bit of both.
Right, maybe it's both. But regardless, it's clear that God sees this as a potential problem.
Okay.
And his solution is pretty creative.
Let's hear it.
He decides to confuse their language
What?
so they can no longer understand each other.
Oh, wow, that's different.
And it's not about punishment.
Okay.
It's about redirecting them.
I see.
It's about preventing them from going down this dangerous path that their ambition might lead them to.
That's really interesting.
And think about it, by disrupting their communication,
Yeah.
he scatters them across the earth.
And that's how everybody ended up all over the place.
It's pretty amazing.
Wow. So they were striving for this unity, and it leads to division.
That's the irony, right?
It's almost like the opposite happened.
It is, and that's where we get the word Babel.
Babel.
It literally means confusion.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing how this ancient story still resonates today.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we seen communication breakdowns lead to conflict?
Oh, all the time.
Misunderstandings, missed opportunities.
Right.
I mean, think about just your own life.
Yeah.
How many times has a simple miscommunication caused, frustration or even bigger problems?
Absolutely. And it highlights how important communication is.
We take it for granted,
We do.
but it really is the foundation
It is.
of any kind of successful relationship project society.
Absolutely.
So we've got this dramatic disruption.
Yeah.
And then the narrative kind of shifts gears a bit.
Okay.
We get this genealogy tracing the line from Shem, one of Noah's sons,
Okay.
down to Abram.
Who will later become Abraham.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, these genealogies, sometimes they seem like a speed bump in the story,
Yeah.
but they're actually really important.
They're not just family trees.
Right.
They're like these historical records,
Right.
establishing lineages,
Okay.
inheritance rights,
Right.
a sense of belonging.
It's like connecting the dots.
Exactly. Connecting people to their past.
Yeah.
And providing that sense of continuity across generations.
And also, they often highlight key figures
Yes.
who played important roles in God's plan.
Exactly. And speaking of significant figures, the genealogy ultimately leads us to Abram.
Yes.
And that's where things really start to get interesting.
Okay, bring it on. The spotlight is shifting now to
Yeah.
Abram and his family.
Yes.
We're setting the stage for his pivotal role in this whole unfolding story. And Genesis doesn't waste any time dropping some crucial details about his situation.
It does not.
His wife, Sarai.
Who will later become Sarah,
That's right.
is unable to have children,
Okay.
and his brother Haran dies in Ur of the Chaldeans.
Oh, wow. So right away we have some tough stuff.
Yeah, it might seem like small details, but they're incredibly important for what happens later.
Yeah, it's like those little seeds that are planted early on
Right.
that turn into these major plot points.
Exactly.
So we have Abram facing these personal challenges.
Yeah.
And then his father, Terah, decides it's time for a big move.
Okay.
They pack up, they head towards Canaan,
The promised land.
the land that God promised to their descendants.
Right.
But here's the thing, they don't make it all the way to Canaan.
Oh.
They stop and settle in this place called Haran.
Haran.
It's like a detour on a road trip.
It is.
What's up with that? What do we know about Ur and Haran?
Well, both of them were significant cultural and religious centers
Okay,
in the ancient world.
so not just some random pit stops.
Oh, no.
So-
Ur was this bustling metropolis,
Okay,
while Haran was known for its moon god worship.
interesting.
So it's possible Terah had personal or economic reasons
Right.
for choosing this particular path.
Or maybe he was just tired of driving.
Maybe, but we can only speculate.
Right.
We don't know for sure.
So it's a bit of a mystery.
It is.
But ultimately, Terah dies in Haran,
He does.
leaving Abram at a crossroads
Yeah.
with a big decision to make.
Big decision.
What do I do now?
And that is where we will pick up next time.
Ooh, I can't wait.
The stage is set for Abram's incredible journey of faith,
Oh, we'll love it.
and we can't wait to dive into that with you.
All right, sounds good.
Radio WBCM. Radio WBCM.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So we left off with Abram and this big decision.
Big decision.
But before we jump into that,
Okay.
I got to go back to those long lifespans for a
Oh,
second.
yeah, the lifespans.
It just blows my mind every time I read those.
I know, it's pretty wild, isn't it?
Like, could you imagine living for hundreds of years?
I mean, the world would feel so different, wouldn't it?
Everything would be at a different pace.
Totally.
Makes me wonder if we're missing something.
What do you mean?
Maybe those long lifespans weren't meant to be taken literally.
Oh, interesting. That's definitely a possibility.
Like maybe they were symbolic somehow,
Uh-huh.
representing something about that time before the world was as we know it.
Yeah, like a time before time almost.
Right. Maybe it's a way of emphasizing how important these people were.
Yeah, how significant they were in God's plan.
Or maybe it's highlighting that contrast
The contrast.
between the pre-flood world and the world that Abram is entering.
Ooh, that's a good point.
It's like those lifespans are pointing back to this time shrouded in mystery.
Yeah, like this kind of mythical time.
Right. It adds a whole other layer to the story, doesn't it?
It does. It reminds us that the Bible isn't always meant to be taken literally.
Right. Sometimes there's a deeper meaning behind those words.
Exactly. Speaking of deeper meanings, we can't overlook the significance of Abram's journey toward Canaan.
That's true.
It's not just a physical journey, is it?
It's like a pilgrimage.
Yeah, a journey of faith.
He's following God's call.
Exactly. But even though God called him to this new land,
Yeah,
his path wasn't exactly straightforward.
that's for sure.
There were detours and challenges.
The moments of doubt.
Definitely makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
Have you ever felt like you were on the right track only to hit a roadblock?
Oh, yeah. All the time. I feel like life is one big detour sometimes.
I know what you mean.
But I guess that's part of the journey, isn't it?
It's about trusting in a bigger plan,
Even when things get messy.
even when things get messy.
And that's where faith comes in, right?
It does. And Abram's story reminds us that faith isn't about having all the answers.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
It's about trusting God's guidance.
Even when we don't understand.
And when we don't understand the path.
It's about taking those steps of faith.
Yes.
Even when we can't see where we're going.
Even when we can't see the destination.
That takes courage.
It does, to step into the unknown.
Especially when you're leaving everything familiar behind.
Exactly. And I think that's why Abram's story is so relatable.
Yeah, we've all been there.
We've all experienced uncertainty and doubt,
But even in those struggles, we see God's faithfulness.
those little glimpses of hope.
Those moments where you're like, okay, God's got this.
And speaking of,
Yeah.
can we go back to the Tower of Babel for a sec?
Oh, yeah, sure. What about it?
We talked about the breakdown of communication, but I'm curious about the bigger implications of that.
Okay, yeah. What do you mean?
The scattering of the people.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about disrupting their plans.
Right.
It also had this huge impact on human culture and civilization.
Like how so?
Think about it for a second. The diversity of languages and cultures that we see in the world today,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that's a direct result of that event.
It's like it set the stage for all the different ways we communicate and express ourselves.
Exactly. Now imagine for a minute,
Okay.
if everyone still spoke the same language,
Okay.
shared the same customs, and had the same worldview.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a scary thought.
Right. The world would be a very different place.
It would be.
Less interesting, for sure.
Definitely less diverse.
It's fascinating how one event could have such a massive ripple effect.
It really is. But it makes you wonder,
What's that?
is there a way to bridge those divides?
You mean between cultures and languages?
Yeah. Can we find unity in the midst of all that diversity?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And the Tower of Babel story reminds us that unity isn't about uniformity.
Ooh, that's good.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity,
Even with our differences.
even with our differences,
It's about finding ways to connect.
even when we don't speak the same language.
That's beautiful.
It's like saying true unity is about celebrating our differences.
Yes. And finding that common ground.
Exactly. And that's a message that's so important in our world today.
Couldn't agree more.
Radio WBCM. Radio WBCM.
So back to Abram.
Okay, back to Abram.
We left him in Haran at a crossroads.
After his father's death.
Right. God had called him to Canaan, but he settled in Haran instead.
Yeah. What do you think we can learn from this little detour in his journey?
That's a good question. Well, first of all,
Yeah.
it reminds us that even the most faithful people experience delays.
Yeah, delays and detours.
So it's okay to not have everything figured out all the time.
It is. We don't have to be perfect.
That's a relief.
Abram's story teaches us that it's not about having a perfect journey.
Right.
It's about staying open to God's guidance.
Even when things take an unexpected turn.
Even when we hit those detours.
It's like those unexpected stops on a road trip
Yeah,
that end up being the highlights.
I love that analogy.
They weren't planned, but they turn out to be amazing.
And sometimes those detours are necessary for growth.
Growth in our faith.
Exactly. They challenge us and stretch us.
And ultimately, they bring us closer to God's purpose for our lives.
That's so true. It's like those moments of uncertainty
Yeah.
that force us to dig deeper
To rely on God.
and discover a resilience we didn't know we had.
Beautifully said.
And in Abram's case, that detour in Haran prepared him for the journey ahead
It did. It was a time of testing and refinement.
and preparation.
Exactly.
It's amazing how even the detours can be part of God's bigger plan.
It really is.
Yeah.
So as we delve further into Abram's story,
Yes,
we're going to see how God's faithfulness unfolds.
even in the face of challenges.
Even in the face of uncertainty.
I can't wait.
Me too. I'm excited to share more insights from Genesis 11 with you.
Wow, it feels like we've been all over the place.
We have. From Babel to Abram's journey, Genesis 11 is packed.
So many twists and turns.
Really is like a snapshot of what it means to be human.
Totally. We see those big ambitions, that desire to connect with each other.
And the struggles.
Oh, yeah. Communication breakdowns all over the place.
But even amidst all of that, what stands out to you?
It's God's faithfulness for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Guiding us, redirecting us, even when we mess up.
It's that image of God, coming down to see what's going on.
Yeah, like he's involved.
He's not just watching from afar,
He's right there with us.
even when we don't realize it.
It's comforting, isn't it?
It is, especially when you think about how much chaos there is in the world.
Absolutely. It's like he's saying, hey, I see you, I hear you, I'm working behind the scenes.
Makes you wonder, what would our world look like if we approach things that way?
How do you mean?
With that same awareness that God is walking alongside us.
Would we be more careful about what we're trying to build?
Yeah, would we be more open to working together?
Even with people who are different from us.
It's like the Tower of Babel is that warning.
Yeah, reminding us that unity isn't about everyone being the same.
But about finding that harmony in our differences.
Exactly. And Abram's story reminds us that faith isn't about having it all figured out.
It's about trusting God even when the path is unclear.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Genesis 11...
How many final takeaways we can carry with us?
Well, first off, God is in control.
He's sovereign.
He sees our ambitions, he knows our limits.
And he's working things out.
Even when we don't understand,
It's also a good reminder to check our own hearts.
what are we trying to build in our own lives?
And are we seeking God's guidance along the way?
And remember, even those detours and delays.
Yeah, those unexpected
We
turns.
can be part of his plan.
That might be frustrating.
But they often teach us valuable lessons.
So it's not about avoiding the challenges.
It's about facing them head on.
with faith and a willingness to learn and grow.
As we move forward from Genesis 11, we can take comfort in knowing that God is with us,
Every step of the way.
guiding us, challenging us, and ultimately leading us toward his purpose for our lives.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Hope you found this deep dive insightful.
And remember, the conversation doesn't have to stop here.
If you're looking for more deep dives into Scripture,
Or Christian music reviews or other engaging content,
be sure to check out our YouTube channel.
Bible Talks on WBCM Radio.
You can find us at www.youtube.com at Radio WBCM.
We release new episodes regularly, so be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
So you don't miss out. Until next time,
Keep seeking
keep exploring.
and keep the conversation going.